A historic decision. FIFA has banned 11 Argentine players from world football. 11, not one or two. 11 players from the Argentine national team are gone, wiped off the map, suspended. Today, I am giving you all the raw details, every single document, and every piece of damning evidence that the FIFA disciplinary committee has laid bare on the table to make the absolute harshest decision in the entire history of football. And I promise you this. Before this video is over, you will know exactly why FIFA hit Argentina with such brutal force. You are going to see every single one of their documented violations. You will finally understand why the president of FIFA chose to personally expose the names of these 11 banned Argentine players. Stick around until the very end, because this is easily the most chaotic and unbelievable scandal ever seen in a World Cup. Think about that for a second. 1 month, a whole month of intense investigation. 30 days during which the FIFA Disciplinary Committee was obsessively digging through physical evidence, testimonies, video recordings, internal documents, and match reports. The conclusion was absolutely devastating. But first, let us get 3 things straight. 3 key facts you are going to learn today. First, the concrete proof of referee corruption that FIFA has documented through specific matches, direct plays, and goals disallowed for no logical reason. Second, all the chaos that exploded during the semifinal match against England, including that controversial Falklands banner, which turned half the international community completely against Argentina. And third, the one that will honestly leave you completely speechless. The physical attacks by the Argentine players against Spain's squad in that World Cup final, and the chaos that erupted in that locker room, the madness inside that tunnel, and what occurred right on the grass while Spain scored that deciding goal, delivering a footballing masterclass they will remember for the rest of their lives. All of this is fully documented by FIFA, so do not go anywhere. Stay right here. Now look, there is one burning question that has been circulating for weeks across every single online forum and debate, on every sports television show from Marca to El Chiringuito. Why has FIFA cracked down so incredibly hard on the Argentine team? Why hand down such an unprecedented, historic punishment? What actually happened to make football's ultimate governing body say enough is enough and ban 11 players from a former World Cup champion team? I promise that once I lay out the reasons, point by point and violation by violation, you will see that FIFA was not being harsh, they were being fair. But I will give you that full answer along with all the official files in the second of this video. So you already know, do not move a muscle. Let us start at the very beginning. Let us talk about what Argentina did during the 2026 World Cup, round by round, match by match, because FIFA did not hand down this penalty over one isolated incident. No, it was a continuous chain of unacceptable behavior that kept repeating itself over and over throughout the entire tournament. And I say this with absolute conviction. Argentina went into the 2026 tournament with the sole intention of winning at all costs. Not through great football or talent, but with tricks, constant provocations, and sheer violence. It is that simple. Let us start with the group stage, where strange things happened from the very first match, plays that seemed debatable at the time, standard parts of the game, or video review calls that could have gone either way. But now, with the official FIFA investigation laid out on the table, they take on a completely different, darker meaning, because FIFA has identified a pattern, a clear pattern of referee bias toward Argentina that simply cannot be explained by luck. Opponent goals ruled out for incredibly tight, razor-thin offsides that the actual broadcast cameras could never fully confirm. Clear penalties completely ignored for Argentina's opponents in incredibly obvious situations. Cards that mysteriously stayed in the referee's pocket when an Argentine player went in studs first. And all of this is documented, match by match, play by play, in the disciplinary committee's report. To be honest, it makes me sick, because while Argentina advanced in the bracket, there were actually honest teams that played fair, getting knocked out because of these rigged decisions. And pay close attention to something I consider absolutely vital. FIFA is not just saying there were simple referee mistakes. Mistakes happen in every single World Cup, we know that. What FIFA is stating is that there was corruption, documented contact between people close to the Argentine team and the match officials. Pre-match meetings, secret discussions that do not appear in any official protocol, and suspicious money transfers that are currently being investigated in parallel by Swiss authorities. We are not talking about an honest referee getting a single split-second call wrong. This is a structured system designed to tip the scale, and to me, as a lifelong fan who has watched football forever, this is the absolute worst thing that can possibly happen to our sport. Because if you cannot trust the officiating to be fair, then football is worth absolutely nothing. Now you might tell me, look, Argentina actually has great players, a truly powerhouse generation of talent. Did they really need to do this? And that is the actual heart of the matter, guys. Because when you witness what Argentina did on the pitch, the constant non-play, the grotesque diving, wasting time starting from the 10th minute, those ugly late tackles, you suddenly realize this squad did not believe in their own football. They knew they lacked the quality. They knew that to defeat the absolute best teams in the world, they required outside help, and they chased it in the most cowardly, shameful way possible in sports, buying off the man with the whistle. It is a total insult to football itself, an absolute insult to their opponents, and a slap in the face to their own loyal fans, who honestly believed their team was winning on merit rather than through cheap, dirty tricks. But hold on, because now we get to something that injects a heavy political element into this entire disaster: the massive semifinal clash against England. That match finished 2-1 for Argentina, but it was already packed with controversial moments, questionable decisions, and a refereeing performance that the English press absolutely tore to shreds. Yet what truly set the whole world on fire, pushing this sports scandal into the dangerous arena of international diplomacy, was what happened right after. Right after the final whistle, the Argentine players unrolled a massive banner right on the pitch, decorated with their national colors, carrying a highly provocative message that read, and I am quoting their exact words, "The Falklands are Argentine," displayed proudly on a World Cup pitch right in front of global television cameras moments after knocking England out. It was pure, unadulterated provocation. Look, I will not get dragged into the debate over who owns the Falklands, since that is an issue governments have squabbled over for several decades, and to this very day, nobody has found a permanent solution. But what I will tell you, and FIFA is absolutely correct on this specific point, is that a football pitch is simply no place for making political statements. A World Cup is not a platform for territorial claims, and FIFA regulations strictly ban this sort of thing. The rules are crystal clear. No political, religious, or provocative messages are allowed on the field. And Argentina knew it. They knew perfectly well it was forbidden, but did it anyway, with full premeditation, malice, and a clear intent to humiliate England in their most painful moment, right after knocking them out. There is a word for that: zero sportsmanship, and FIFA was not going to let it slide. Unsurprisingly, the British media went absolutely ballistic, with London outlets demanding immediate and severe punishments for the team. The Times, The Guardian, the Daily Mail, the BBC, everyone, and the Spanish press quickly took a firm stance, too. Marca published a brutal editorial, while AS called it an absolute sporting disgrace. Over on El Chiringuito, they spent an entire episode debating whether Argentina should have been disqualified before the final. Personally, I think the answer is obvious. They should have been thrown out right then and there, but FIFA chose to investigate after the tournament ended, bringing us to the harshest punishment in football history. So, in the end, it is delayed justice, but justice nonetheless. However, that banner stunt was merely the beginning, because what went down during the final match was actually far worse. It was infinitely worse, and it is what truly forced FIFA to take such incredibly strong action. The grand final, Spain versus Argentina, the Santiago Bernabeu, the cathedral of world football, the grandest stage, the ultimate showcase, the one match watched by the entire planet. And there Spain stepped up to show why they are the best team on earth, proving it beyond doubt. From the very first whistle, Spain suffocated Argentina, trapping them in a relentless passing carousel that the South Americans could not even get close to. Over overwhelming possession, triangular passing on wings that left the Argentine defenders staring blankly into space, off-the-ball movement that seemed rehearsed 1,000 times, and a tactical masterclass that was a showcase of beautiful football. Spain was operating on a completely different level. They played champagne football, the kind you only read about in books, and Argentina could do absolutely nothing. They could not touch the ball, could not cross the halfway line. It was 11 men chasing a shadow they had no hope of catching. And that is exactly when the nightmare began. Because when they realized they lacked the quality, when they saw Spain passing rings around them in the biggest match of their lives, the Argentine players completely lost their minds. And not just metaphorically, they genuinely lost all control. Out came the criminal tackles, late kicks from behind with no intent to play the ball, elbows flying and deliberate stamps, constant shirt pulling off the ball, and nasty verbal abuse that the cameras missed, but the pitchside microphones caught loud and clear. Argentina stopped playing football altogether and turned to a completely different game. Something that has absolutely nothing to do with sport. Something that is truly sickening. Meanwhile, Spain just kept playing their own game. They showed a level of elegance and sportsmanship that for me was easily the greatest part of that entire final. Our players just took those brutal kicks, got right back up time after time, and simply kept playing. They kept passing, they kept creating, and they kept hunting the Argentine goal with the same intensity as if they were just in a training session. And then, the goal came. Of course it came. When you play like that, when you truly respect the sport and your football is so superior, scoring is just a matter of time. 1-0. Spain are the champions of the world, and the image that remains burned into our minds forever is not just the trophy being lifted. It is the sheer contrast. Spain celebrating with class and sportsmanship, while Argentina is completely surrounded by referee reports of pending suspensions and the deep shame of turning a world final into a cheap street brawl. But now, we get to exactly what I promised you. It is time for the answer to the big question. Why on earth has FIFA punished Argentina with such extreme, heavy-handed severity? I am going to break it down for you point by point, violation by violation, exactly as the disciplinary committee laid it out in their official ruling. Infraction number 1, direct referee corruption. FIFA has fully documented highly irregular contact between personnel closely linked to the Argentine Football Association and the match officials who were specifically assigned to Argentina's games during this tournament. These questionable contacts took place completely outside of any official channels, without any prior communication to the referees committee, and on dates immediately leading up to the actual matches. The official report explicitly points to at least 3 matches where referee decisions showed a statistically anomalous bias in favor of Argentina. 3 whole matches, and in every single one, there were game-defining plays, completely flipping the final scoreline or at least rewriting the entire dynamic of the match. Just this on its own would easily warrant a massive, brutal punishment. But there is actually more. Infraction number 2, systematic unsporting behavior. And here, FIFA uses a highly specific word you do not often see in their official documents, and that word is systematic. They are not talking about isolated incidents here, ours. They are talking about an ongoing pattern of behavior repeated across every single match Argentina played in this tournament. Exaggerated diving designed to trick referees into booking their opponents, and highly deliberate time wasting orchestrated directly from the substitute bench, along with coordinated violent tackles specifically intended to intimidate the opposing players. And all of this is compounded by the fact that, according to the investigation, this was not spontaneous behavior from the players, it was fully planned. There were clear, direct instructions from the coaching staff to execute these dirty tactics. And that, guys, is incredibly serious because it means we are absolutely not just talking about one single player losing his cool in a heated, isolated moment. We are talking about an entire sports organization that decided the absolute best way to win a World Cup was to cheat and kick people. It is honestly embarrassing to watch. Infraction number 3, displaying prohibited political messages right on the playing pitch. That famous Falklands banner. I have already mentioned this to you earlier, but FIFA officially classifies this as a massive, severe violation of their governing statutes. And there is a little detail here that has not been talked about much, which will give you a real idea of just how far things actually went. The banner was not some spur-of-the-moment thing, nor was it just a t-shirt a player hid under his official jersey. It was a pre-made banner that someone smuggled into the dressing room, carried onto the pitch, and which the players then unfurled in a highly coordinated move right in front of the cameras. Complete premeditation. They knew exactly what they were going to do before the match even kicked off, and they did it fully knowing they were breaking the rules. And look, the president of FIFA came out and made this point absolutely clear. The ongoing debate over the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is a complex matter that FIFA cannot resolve, nor is it their place to resolve, stating that even today, the international community does not share a single, completely unanimous position on whether the Falkland Islands actually belong to Argentina or to England, and that a standard football pitch, let alone a massive World Cup semifinal, is simply not the right venue for making territorial demands. He is absolutely, completely right about that. If we allow every single national team to use a World Cup to push their own political messages, football turns into something completely different, and that is not what any of us want. Infraction number 4, and this is easily the most serious of them all. Direct physical assaults against opposing players during the final match. And this is where FIFA has really thrown the book at them, because the video footage is absolutely undeniable. The recordings from the main television cameras, from the stadium's internal security cameras, and even the on-field microphones show in an absolutely unmistakable way that several players from Argentina physically attacked Spain's players both during the match and right after the game had finished. Shoving, throwing punches, violent grabbing, and even spitting right in the middle of a World Cup final in front of over 2 billion viewers worldwide. And all of this directed at players whose only real crime was simply playing better football. That is precisely what makes this so incredibly frustrating. The violence came entirely out of desperation. Argentina simply did not have a footballing level to compete with Spain. Spain gave them an absolute masterclass, and when they could not win with the ball, they tried winning with their fists. Pure cowardice, there is no other word. And I will leave you with something the FIFA president himself said, which I genuinely believe sums up this whole ugly situation perfectly. Argentina simply did not have the footballing quality to beat Spain on the pitch, so they resorted to pure physical aggression. Now, that is not just my personal opinion, though I absolutely believe it. That is exactly what the absolute head of world football has declared. And when the very person running FIFA has to step out and say something like that in public, you know the situation is incredibly serious. And now, the part that so many of you have been waiting for, the 11 names, the 11 Argentinian players FIFA is going to ban from global football. But I have to be completely honest with you here. As of today, those 11 names have not been officially made public. What the FIFA president did say is that they will be revealed to the world in the coming weeks, once the formal process of notifying each individual player and the Argentine Football Association is fully completed. But what we actually do know for sure, and this has been confirmed by several reliable sources very close to the disciplinary committee, is that among those 11 are absolute undisputed starters for the Argentine national team. These are not bench warmers, they are not squad fillers, they are absolute heavyweights. These are players who earn millions of euros every single year playing at the absolute top clubs in Europe. To me, that makes this sanction even more powerful, because FIFA did not just go after the easy targets, or the ones with the least influence. They went straight for the ringleaders. They went after the ones who led the violence, the ones who had illicit contact with the referees, and the ones who unrolled that political banner. The ones with the most responsibility are going to pay the heaviest price. And I tell you this with complete conviction, that seems entirely fair to me. Just imagine for a second what this actually means for Argentine football. 11 banned players, 11 massive holes in a national squad that had already proven they simply could not win without resorting to cheating. How does Argentina enter the next tournament? What kind of team do they field? What credibility do they have? Because the damage to their reputation is absolutely catastrophic. Argentina is going from being one of the most widely admired national teams in history to the team that cheated at a World Cup and bought off referees, the team that brutally assaulted their opponents and used the pitch as a political propaganda platform. That is the dark legacy the 2026 World Cup leaves behind for Argentina. And to me, as someone who truly loves this sport, that is incredibly painful. It hurts because Argentine football has given us so many incredible players, unforgettable moments, and goals that will be remembered forever. But what this generation has done stains all of that. It taints the blue and white jersey in a way that will take a very long time to wash away. And there is another crucial aspect that nobody can ignore: the massive economic consequences. Because a punishment of this immense scale is not just about sporting bans. FIFA is currently planning a financial fine of truly historic proportions against the Argentine Football Association. People are talking about an astronomical figure that could easily exceed 50 million euros. A 50 million euro financial penalty, guys. And on top of that, Argentina could actually be excluded from the next World Cup in 2030. Yes, you heard that right. Completely excluded. Kicked out of the tournament. FIFA has not officially confirmed that outcome yet, but the disciplinary committee report lists it as a real option that is firmly on the table. And honestly, if you did what Argentina did at the 2026 World Cup, the absolute bare minimum is that you should be banned from playing in the next one, so that you learn a lesson, so you realize the rules exist to be followed, and that football is not some wild jungle where anything goes. Now, I want to pause on something that I find absolutely fundamental, and that is the reaction of the sports press and major media outlets all around the world, because it is incredibly eye-opening. The Spanish press, as you would expect, has loudly applauded this decision by FIFA. Marca ran a headline calling it historical justice, while AS spoke of the day football said enough. Pope dedicated a massive 3-hour special to analyzing the entire sanction, and over at El Chiringuito, well, you can only imagine. It was one of those legendary nights that makes television history. But the most interesting part is that it was not just the Spanish press cheering, the English media joined in too. And that is highly significant, because the English media rarely takes the side of anyone who is not England. But in this particular case, the sheer outrage over the Falklands banner and Argentina's constant anti-football tactics made the British media celebrate the punishment as if it were their own victory. The Times reported that FIFA had set a much-needed example, and The Athletic published a massive, in-depth analysis detailing every single refereeing irregularity they had personally detected throughout the entire tournament. When Spain and England, two historic rivals, both completely agree that Argentina fully deserved this severe punishment, it is because Argentina deserved it and then some. Now, I want to share a reflection straight from a place of honesty and from the very heart of a football fan. What image does this leave for Spain? For me, it is the best possible image. Spain went to the World Cup to play football, the most beautiful football. And they won by playing the most spectacular football seen in a World Cup final in decades. Spain did not need to buy off any referees. Spain did not need to kick opponents. They did not need political banners to get motivated. Spain relied on what they always had: sheer talent, relentless hard work, and a truly spectacular generation of players. Players who, from the Bernabeu to Miami and from New York to Los Angeles, they have proven that Spanish football is at the absolute top, and that World Cup, guys, belongs to us. It belongs to everyone who loves Spanish football. To all of us who suffered watching Argentina try to steal what we rightfully earned on the pitch with their violent kicks and endless provocations, but they failed because real football always wins in the end. Always. And let me tell you something else that has barely been talked about until now. Right after the final whistle, several Spanish players gave official statements to FIFA as part of the formal investigation, sharing terrifying testimonies about what they actually went through out there on the pitch, about the physical assaults they endured and the insults received. They detailed the genuine fear they felt when they realized the Argentinians were no longer trying to play football, but just to cause real injury. Those direct testimonies, according to sources close to the committee, were absolutely decisive for the sanction, because television footage is one thing, and it is already quite clear, but the direct accounts of the victimized players add a layer of detail and severity that cameras often miss. We are talking about shoving matches inside the locker room tunnel, serious verbal threats during the match, and aggressive, intimidating gestures towards Spanish players who were celebrating their goal. Every single bit of this was documented, recorded, and submitted. And one thing makes me incredibly angry. Argentina knew they were being filmed. They knew cameras were in every corner of the stadium. The entire world was watching them, yet they chose to attack, completely throwing away their dignity in front of 2 billion people. That exposes a broken team mentality and a sporting culture that is deeply deteriorated. If the eyes of the entire planet cannot stop you from violently attacking an opponent, then something is deeply wrong inside that squad, and FIFA clearly saw it that exact same way too. That is why this penalty is historic, because their behavior was historically shameful. But what is coming next will leave you even more shocked, because FIFA's investigation does not stop at just those 11 players on the pitch. FIFA is actively investigating the entire Argentinian coaching staff, including the head manager, the physical trainers, and team delegates, because as I mentioned earlier, this dirty play was not spontaneous. It was fully planned. If it was planned, someone on that bench ordered it. Someone in management decided that their strategy to win a World Cup had to include buying off referees and kicking opponents. And that person, or those people, must pay the price. FIFA has not officially announced penalties against the coaching staff yet, but we expect more news on this in the coming weeks. If you ask me, I really hope FIFA investigates this to the very end, leaving absolutely no stone unturned, so that everyone who took part in this sporting disgrace finally faces the consequences. Now, I want to ask a question that I know will spark massive debate. Should FIFA strip Argentina of their 2026 World Cup results? If match referee corruption is officially proven, with proof that Argentina advanced through the tournament using bribed officials, shouldn't those corrupt match results be completely voided? Shouldn't the national teams that were knocked out because of those rigged matches receive some form of sporting compensation? I believe they should. I feel that if FIFA has actually managed to prove this massive corruption, it must be distant and completely wipe out the results gained from it. But I know that is highly complicated from a legal standpoint, and it probably will not happen. What will definitely happen is that Argentina is going to carry the heavy stigma of being the team that cheated. And in football, that is an eternal prison sentence. Something else I want to point out, which seems totally overlooked in most match analyses, is the clear message this severe penalty sends to the rest of the world, because FIFA is making one key thing absolutely clear. It doesn't matter who you are, your history, or how many World Cups you won. If you break rules, you pay. And that is something our sport desperately needed to hear, because for several decades, we have watched major national teams and massive clubs get away with toxic behaviors that would bring extremely heavy suspensions down on any smaller country. And FIFA finally stepped up. They proved the rulebook applies to everyone, and even if it sounds like a cliche, that is absolutely vital for the future of our game. Speaking of the future, what actually happens to Argentina ahead of the 2030 World Cup? As I said, total exclusion is definitely on the table. FIFA has not officially confirmed it yet, but they have not ruled it out either. And there is another massive factor making things even worse. Argentina was scheduled to be a host candidate for the 2030 tournament. Can you even imagine? Imagine a nation whose team was sanctioned for corruption and violence, actually aiming to host the biggest sports event on Earth. It sounds like a joke, and I hope FIFA acts logically and rejects them immediately. You cannot reward a nation with a World Cup when they just dragged the previous tournament through the mud with cheating and violent attacks. It would mock the sport. And here is one final bombshell saved for the end. The FIFA president hinted in his statements that this massive investigation could actually expand to cover other previous tournaments. He suggested the disciplinary committee found clear evidence that Argentina's dark pattern of behavior was not limited to the 2026 World Cup. There might have been major irregularities in past competitions that were never investigated until now. Can you imagine what that means? It means Argentina's referee corruption was not a single isolated incident. It was structural, systemic, and running deep for years. And if FIFA actually proves that, we are talking about the absolute biggest credibility crisis in the history of international football. But that is a story for another day, and I will bring you those updates first. For now, let's recap exactly what we know so far. FIFA has officially banned 11 Argentinian players from all international football. Documented offenses include referee corruption and systematic unsportsmanlike play. They also displayed illegal political messages on the pitch and physically assaulted several opposing players during that chaotic World Cup final match against Spain. the financial penalty hanging over them could easily exceed €50 million. Getting completely thrown out of the 2030 World Cup is a very real possibility, and those 11 names will be made public within weeks. First, let me ask you two big questions. I want you to answer these in the comments, because I genuinely want your take. First, do you think FIFA actually went far enough? Or should they have cracked down even harder on Argentina? And second, the one that is really causing a massive debate, do you actually think Argentina should be banned from the 2030 World Cup, or is punishing those 11 players more than enough? Tell me below, I want to read them all.